Hello, Assalamualaikum, Selamat Petang, Selamat Pagi, Namaskar, 大家好, Konbanwa, Hapali, Om Mani Padme. Hello, hola, annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to the fourth episode of Word Mediation Deacon. This is DK. I'm beyond excited to have my guest today. His name is Seng Onn Loong. He was Executive Director of Singapore Mediation Centre, SMC, for 15 years. He is not only representative international mediator of Singapore, but the best mediation trainer I have ever met. He taught mediation in Singapore, Korea, Thailand, Malta, Fiji. He's literally mediation evangelist. Hello, Seng Onn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, DK. That is far too kind an introduction.
Is there any missing country?
Yes, there are a few, but we don't have to go there.
Could you introduce yourself, including where you were born, raised, and educated, and career path up to now and after the retirement?
Okay, I was born in Malaysia, and after I did my earlier education in Malaysia, I came to Singapore. I did my junior college, I suppose some sort of high school. I went on to study law at the National University of Singapore, got called to the bar, practiced law for 3 years as a litigator, which I absolutely disliked. I didn't like the idea of fighting with the other side's lawyers, fighting with your clients sometimes, and sometimes fighting with your bosses. So it was not the kind of work which I enjoyed. So after about 3 years, I left litigation. I went into a statutory board, telecommunications. There I was doing some legal work, some policy work, sort of a jack of all trades. And there I was there for about till 92, about 5 years. And then I chanced upon, it was just purely by chance, there was an advertisement for a position at the Singapore Academy of Law. Now, the Singapore Academy of Law is the holding company of the Singapore Mediation Centre. So I joined the Singapore Academy of Law in 1997. At that point, I joined as an officer in charge of legal education. That was 1997, I think about January, February. Then when I was there, the Academy of Law told me that, look, we are going to start this whole new thing called mediation and start a center. Would you like to be involved? To be honest, at the point, I had zero idea what mediation was. But I thought, okay, something new, why don't I try it out? And the rest, as they say, is history, because I stayed at the job from 1997 to, as you pointed out, 2019, when I actually retired from full-time occupation. So that in a nutshell is career.
Wow, and what's the relationship between SMC and SIMC and sometimes SIMI? There's too many institutions.
Okay. It's going to be slightly complicated. Let me just try and simplify it. Our Mediation Centre was launched as the flagship mediation centre for Singapore in 1997. So it was one of the earlier bodies. SIMC came along slightly later, and I says it all. The I says it all. It stands for international. And so what Singapore has decided to do, okay, let me just quickly digress. Both organizations at the end of the day are, I could call it government linked, supported by the government, okay, in some way, shape or form, or even incorporated by the government. So what Paul decided as a strategy then was to split, have two different organizations, one focusing more on the domestic scene to build the domestic scene up, and one really focusing on the international scene. And that's why you come up with SMC and Singapore International, focusing on the international scene, trying to bring in cross-border cases. The other body, SIMI, Singapore International Mediation Institute, is a standards setting body. It's not a service provider like SMC or SIMC. It's to maintain the standards of mediation in Singapore. So by accrediting or recognizing the accreditation of mediators. I think one of the things, it deals with this problem, which is if I were to go to country X and Mr. A from country X says, hello, I'm Mr. A, I'm a mediator, I am accredited by country X. But then that begs the question, you don't know what country X is, you don't know what the mediation standards are. So what we're hoping to do is to have some sort of more cross-border global standard setting bodies, which I suppose SIMI is hoping to be as well, so that once someone knows that you are SIMI accredited, whether you are assured of a certain standard of mediation.
I see. So SIMI is kind of IMI.
Absolutely. As the name suggests, it's very closely linked to IMI. It's the Singapore version of the International Mediation Institute. In fact, there is, I believe now still, some sort of cross-recognition of accreditation as well. It was definitely there and then when I was still at SMC, but I think it should still be there as well.
I see. So you act as a trainer in all of these three center or institution.
Okay, so IMI and SIMI do not provide training as such. So they will accredit other organizations. So they may accredit the Singapore Mediation Centre to provide training and assessment, or they may accredit AMC, Singapore International Mediation Centre, to provide training and assessment.
Oh, I see. So you are a trainer in SMC, SIMC, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Understood. Thank you so much. I was so confused.
No, it is crazy. There are too many organizations.
Just a question popped up to my mind that which one do you prefer, trainer or mediator?
Oh, that is a very, very good question. If the matter settles, I prefer mediation. No, seriously. It's very different. I think it's hard to compare apples and oranges. One is more immediate. If you help two people who are in an awful situation, two companies, for instance, who are in a very difficult situation, a very tough dispute, intractable dispute, and you help them settle the matter, you get the high of realizing that you've helped people avoid all the trauma of fighting a matter, all the costs involved, etc. So that's more, I suppose, immediate and direct from the case itself. For training, I think there are two parts which are fulfilling in a sense. One is the fun of actually interacting with a group of participants, learning from them as they learn from us as well, and all the activity and the excitement of a class, ongoing class. But apart from that, the other thing which you get out of a workshop is one, that you are helping to spread the word about mediation, and two, in some cases, hopefully actually inspiring people to come on board and to take mediation seriously as mediators, as peacemakers. So it is very different, and both parts can be very fulfilling.
Understood. I asked so much stupid question. Something
No,
incompatible.
not at all. There are no stupid questions. Yeah, no, there are no stupid questions. It's a very tough question because, as I said, I couldn't give you a straight answer.
I see. While I'm searching you on YouTube, your interview in SMC, I remember you mentioned that you like some emotional confrontation in mediation. I was surprised. Wow, you like it? Do you mean it?
Okay. That's a very good question as well. I think many people can mediate and can even mediate very well. I suppose the other thing about mediation is working on your own strengths. And I find that, and it may not be a fair generalization, some of the mediators we meet tend to be uncomfortable dealing with emotions. And here I'm going to generalize, and I'm going to be short for being sexist, but men are generally less comfortable with emotions as opposed to women. That's a generalization, okay, I admit that. But somehow for me, because of my past experiences or because of my other involvement, other types of work, I am quite comfortable dealing with emotions. And therefore, to me, the fact that there are strong emotions in a dispute I can say adds spice to the mediation, as opposed to a completely cut and dried technical matter, or where it's just all about money. So the emotions heighten this whole human aspect of mediation, which I really enjoy, dealing with people, trying to build rapport with people, trying to help people deal with their strong emotions. I'm completely quite comfortable dealing with it.
Wow, that's great.
And I should share with you one small anecdote. This, I caution, is not something to be practiced. It's quite risky. There was a case where a disputant, she was a lady, and she was very hard, very distant, detached, cold. And even though, legally speaking, she realized that she had no case, she was actually in the wrong, she had no case, she refused to settle, she refused to budge. So here's when I thought I need to somehow get through to her, to break her down, in a sense, to overcome this intellectual aspect and to get at the heart. So it's a long story, but cut a long story short, I used a particular trigger based on what had happened, then said something to her. At that point in time, she actually sort of broke down slightly, teared a bit, and then from that moment on, there was a breakthrough because she became human, no more the heart detached, completely using her head and being able to be very defensive. Once she became emotional, that's where you really got through to the person. So that's, I think, a case where you can actually, but it's really very risky. So that's why I say this is not to be tried. It's probably against all the mediation books and it's probably considered manipulation, but there was no way I could get through to her. And it really begs the question, when you help parties settle, when you drive towards settlement, are you doing it because it is your self-interest, that you want a settlement, that you want a good settlement record? Is that why you're doing it, or are you doing it for the parties? So far, I may be lying to myself, but I've managed to convince myself in all those cases in the past, I can honestly say, hand to heart, that a settlement is better than no settlement. And therefore, I will do whatever is useful to help parties settle, if you know what I mean.
That's a great example. I think did you ever learn psychology or just learn psychology by your practice?
I think, according to my friends at least, I've always been quite comfortable and quite okay at reading and dealing with people. Having said that, I'm supposed to be an introvert, so it's all a performance, but I'm comfortable dealing with people and I like dealing with people.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. And as you already explained some kind of your experience in the mediation, and I would like to ask one of your best or worst or funniest memory as a mediator.
I have a few, but some of them are going to take too long to talk about. But I tell you what, I'll share with you a mediation experience where I learned from my own mistake. Because this segues nicely from what we just talked about and my perception that I'm good at dealing with people. So this was a mediation. And what happened at this mediation was, it was a property type dispute. And for some reason, one of the parties had her mother come along as well, okay, for reasons I won't go into. And all through the mediation, because I felt as a mediator, and also her own mother felt as well, very strongly that she should settle this matter instead of going to court, we started, I suppose, shall we say, exerting some form of, it starts off like persuasion and then slowly the pressure mounts. You're trying to get parties, your bad is if you go to court, this has happened, and all that. And it became quite strenuous in how we approached her. And it went on and on until it reached a point where she said, okay, stop it. I am calling off this mediation. I cannot take it anymore. All of you are pressuring me to settle. And that's where I took a step back. I mean, the point I learned was this. Never be overconfident. I was overconfident in what I felt was my ability to pile on pressure without getting the person back off. But in this case, it went too far. And after that, at that point, you cannot imagine how hard I had to grovel and beg for forgiveness from this lady for putting on this pressure. And hopefully it was settled, and hopefully she forgave me, because at the end of the mediation we did hug, so hopefully all was forgiven. But the point is this, I'm overconfident. So no matter how many cases you've settled, never think that you're going to settle the next case. Treat each case and each individual as different, each party as different. And always start from ground zero and not make assumptions about your abilities or about the parties. So that was a good learning point for me.
Wow, that's great. So overconfidence make you kind of arrogant.
Yep. Taking things for granted. Yeah, because I've got away with it in so many cases, I'll get away with this case as well.
How many cases did you handle?
Not that many, to be honest, because when I was running the center, I think one of the things I was very conscious of is not to assign too many cases to myself. I could have done that over the 1997 to 2022 to 2019, assign cases to myself and slowly build up my reputation as a mediator. But I was conscious that would be a sort of conflict situation because I was also involved in assigning mediators, so I should be assigning to other mediators and not only to myself. So I spent most of my time when I was at the Singapore Mediation Centre running the centre rather than actually mediating.
Oh, I see. How many executive director SMC have?
Before me, there were two, so I was the third executive director. And I think after I've left, there's been two more, I think. Yeah.
I see. So there is only one executive director at the time?
One executive director, yes, at the time, yeah.
You have such powerful person.
But I was the longest there because I couldn't find any other job, so I just stayed there for a long time.
Thank you for your great lessons. And can you speak one of your most impressive mediation advocates or co-mediator?
Mediation advocates, I've seen very many very good mediation advocates, simply because by its very nature, if a lawyer is actually suggesting mediation, chances are he's very supportive and trying to get the matter settled. So I've seen mediation advocates who go out of their way almost to the point where they almost alienate their clients, but they work very closely with the mediators to help parties achieve a settlement, helping the mediators reality test their own clients, behaving in a very, very civil manner, very professional manner with the other side, even though the other side can be very aggressive and sometimes not reasonable. So there have been many very good mediation advocates that I've come across when I've mediated. For co-mediators, I think there have been particular skills of particular co-mediators which I have really admired, and I look up to them and say, okay, that is one skill I want to learn. There's one co-mediator, I remember, who was trying to reality test with the person that she was in the wrong, but at the same time had to appear empathetic. So not reality test to such an extent that I am right, no, I'm trying to say that you are wrong. But at the same time, making sure that the mediator completely understands the party and also that the party recognizes that the mediator understands the party. So essentially what she was doing, she was going through a round of cross-examination. And I know you're a lawyer, so you know what cross-examination is like. But she did the cross-examination with such finesse, such subtlety, such diplomacy that you felt that she was completely being so nice to the party, but yet she managed to get the party to admit that the party was wrong. So these are some of the past co-mediations where you see people do that and say, okay, I must learn how to do that as well, to add to my toolbox of mediation skills.
Wow, that's great. In that co-mediation, did you have any difficulties dealing with, because acting as a co-mediator, if the other mediator is doing that well, my
adverse effect,
as she is a superior in terms of quality of service, her skill set, technique is better than me, then you might somewhat subordinated to her or something like that. Wasn't there anything like that?
Another great point, great question you're raising. Okay, so when I'm talking about co-mediation, I'm talking about equal mediators and not a lead mediator and an assistant mediator. So both have equal status. If it is good co-mediation, both co-mediators will be sensitive about such dynamics. So for instance, if I were co-mediating with someone with zero experience, and it's the first mediation case, I will be super conscious not to appear as if I am the lead mediator. So somehow I will be conscious of managing the dynamics. For instance, by always referring to my co-mediator, okay, tell me what do you feel at this point in time, or why don't you take over the line of questioning from this point onwards? Making sure that we are perceived as a united front, or we never undermine each other and we work as a group. So these kinds of things, if both co-mediators are sensitive and are good co-mediators, this shouldn't be a problem. But I'll be honest with you, there have been times where and that's why some people don't like co-mediation. What if I want this strategy, I'm approaching it from this angle, but the co-mediator makes a mistake or goes somewhere else? So there have been times where I've had to, okay, let's have a co-mediation caucus, bring my co-mediator aside and say, why on earth did you do that? But as long as parties don't see it, it's okay. Then we come back to mediation, and again, we're a united front and acting as co-mediators.
I see. Co-mediation, caucusing is very important.
Yeah, have to develop some form of a way of communicating with each other as well, writing each other notes or whatever, or kicking each other under the table if someone makes a mistake or says something wrong. You should try. I'm a great believer in co-mediation. Because I really think that whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and you bring in so much more and you co-mediate that what you can do as a pair is much, much more than what you can do alone. Having said that, I can also appreciate some people do not like co-mediation. Some mediators do not like co-mediation.
While listening your story, you are super sensitive to emotions, others' emotions, including co-mediator or clients or someone else. And it seems like you are using psychology as a great method for resolving disputes. Am I correct?
I think you are right. We do tend to use psychology. And that's the other thing about mediation. Don't wait until you're at a mediation to practice all these skills, all these things, how you deal with people. It's something that you can be doing, improving on your mediation skills on a day-to-day basis in all your interactions with your people, with other people, with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues. All these things, what they do, what is your direction, how do you move somewhere else together or come apart, all these things will all be useful one day in a real mediation.
Understood. Last year, workshop at Seoul, you taught us cultural things and cultural taboos, and I made mistake. I recall that. And that's quite important. If I break some cultural taboo, then other parties' emotion can get hurt. So I think that's a quite important factor. And can you provide your cultural taboo experience?
So I suppose when you talk about the psychology and being sensitive, the antenna has to be even more sensitive because now you are dealing with another whole area and something you may not even be familiar with. So really, really watch out for cues as to where you may have taken a misstep. That's about the advice I can give at this point in time.
Understood. So in order to be a good international mediator, you need to know psychology, the different cultures, and you need to have a good antenna. That's quite different skill set from a lawyer, right? Lawyer uses a logic and law, but mediator have a broad realms of knowledge.
Well, in a sense, you're right. Generally speaking, they are very different. But also, if you think about it, let's say you were in a trial with a jury, or even if it's just a judge alone, these things are also useful. How you read the judge, how is the judge reacting to what you're saying? As long as you deal with people, all these, what we've talked about, would be important, maybe particularly important in mediation, but anywhere else, it will also be useful, be relevant.
Thank you very much for your lessons and experience. You retired, and early age you retired, and you become a freelancer, not full-time freelancer. Part of time you do something else. Can you tell me what's your plan for before retirement and after the retirement, now and after 15 years plan?
So I retired in 2019 at the age of 55. I decided I wanted more time. Our time on earth is limited. And I feel that we should be spending time also exploring other things, because I think I spent a lot of time on mediation already, a lot of time as an employee, as an executive director. And I think there are other things in life that are worth exploring. So I wanted to give myself the space and time to do it. And I didn't want to retire at age of 65 and how many more good years are there left. So I wanted to do it early enough, and I'm really lucky, which somehow I could manage to do that, not having any sort of like real financial responsibilities and burdens. So once I retired, I wanted to keep in touch with mediation. So definitely I still continue to mediate. Definitely I still want to continue training people in mediation. But apart from that, it's completely an open book. And I told myself this: once I leave the office, I will only do things which are meaningful or fun. That's all. Or it can be meaningful and fun. So whatever comes along, by the time I retired, 2019, it was straight immediately before COVID. So so what I could explore was limited. But now I would like to do perhaps some more social work. I would like to learn a lot of things, whether it be, and I noticed that you have a musical instrument. Is that a cello at the back? I started picking up the guitar, and then I took up online courses. I think one was basic psychology, creative thinking, and stuff like that. Things which are sort of related to mediation, but I was also interested in it. So at this point in time, the world is my oyster, and I can do whatever I want. Traveling, I would like to do more traveling as well. And it's a chance to learn things about different cultures, different people.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I found you in one of another YouTube and kind of actor, kind of father's road. And whoa, what's he doing? Is he acting? What is that?
DK, you are really prepared for this. You've really done your research. So that is another thing which I've been doing, and always semi-seriously, which is acting on stage. Again, it has its relevance in mediation, because in mediation, as a mediator, sometimes you have to put on different persona, and that's where my acting experience has been useful. It has also been useful in helping me mask emotions which I should not be showing. If I'm angry with a person, I use some of my acting skills to appear differently.
Wow. So your training was so active and communicative because you're a part-time actor.
Partially, the acting part helps in knowing how to use your voice, having a presence. But I think the workshop thing, one of the secrets to being a better trainer is very simply, we ask our participants to have fun, but you also must be having fun. Because when you are, as a trainer, if you are having fun, that will get across to the participants, and it will infect the participants as well. So part of the things I do for a workshop is to make sure I enjoy myself, so that helps the participant, and also to keep things fresh. And that's another acting technique, because sometimes you play a role for 20 nights. So it's the same role, the same lines, but each night it has to be fresh, it has to be new. So the same thing in training, you may have taught the same module 20 times, but each time you teach the module again, something has to be in your own mind, and in the way you approach it has to be new. So that keeps it alive.
I see. You love acting, and mediation is just for money, or vice versa? You love mediation and use acting as a mediator too, or both of them?
So I definitely needed a job. So you are right in the sense that acting, I would have starved to death. It doesn't pay enough to pay for my roof over my head. So that's where my job as a mediator, as well, and my job at the SMC comes into play. But really, I mentioned a bit about how I stumbled onto mediation. It's purely by luck, purely serendipity, and I consider myself very, very fortunate, because I don't think that many people really, really enjoy what they do. And I've been fortunate, really blessed.
I'm very surprised because when I was middle school, I loved acting and I was main actor at Sunday school until the high schools. And I loved playing.
Think about it as well. The next time you're mediating, what are some of the things which you have learned from being an actor and how they can apply to mediation?
I see. Wow, I'm quite surprised. Thank you.